Got breaking NFL news. Team owners have approved a proposal allowing NFL players to participate in flag football at the 28 Summer Olympics in Los Angeles. Now, that proposal will need final approval from the Players Association. There would be a limit of one player per NFL team on each national team participating. So you can't have two United States players from one team. There would also be a salary cap credit for any player who's injured while participating. Our Jonathan Jones has been following this news all week and joins us now. JJ, I know this isn't the end of things. This doesn't make it completely official. What are the other hurdles that we're going to have to jump through here before we see stars, NFL stars, in the 28 Olympics?
Yeah, some substantial hurdles, certainly. Like, flag football was always happening in the 2028 games. It's no guarantee it's going to take place in the 2032 games. So this could be a one and done, right? And it's going to be taking place in Los Angeles. Today's approval of a resolution, that was a rubber stamp. This was a unanimous approval. As soon as the resolution came out last week, we knew that on today it was going to get approved. And so there was actually no debate even in the room, I'm told. It just passed. So now, what is next? This is a resolution to allow everyone the ability to talk more about figuring out the other issues. You mentioned a salary cap credit. If someone is injured, you have to deal with insurance policies. Who's paying those insurance policy premiums? What team is willing to give up a player or two to go represent their country or countries, for example, in 2028. You also, I want people to understand this, because while the Olympics are going to take place in mid to late July of 2028, you're going to have to practice. You're going to have to actually qualify. You're going to have to practice. You're going to have to team build. That's going to be a process that takes a year, and it will be inconvenient and incompatible with the NFL's off-season schedule and potentially with the regular season schedule as well. You are going to miss time with your team in a pursuit of a Lombardi. And so, how many teams are going to be willing to let star players go do that? And so I don't mean to throw some cold water on all this. I know that there's a lot out there right now, Chris, about, oh, the U.S. is about to assemble the dream team. Maybe, but also maybe not.
Yeah, what's that rule? It was kind of in the middle of the read that I made for this breaking news, that you can't have multiple U.S. players from one team. I mean, if one team has 3 U.S. stars, they're only going to be able to pick one of them out of there?
That's exactly right. So for the U.S. team, first of all, there's only going to be 10 players, right? This is 5-on-5. And because of the way that flag football is set up, you're going to want some versatility as well. You're going to need some players who can play on both sides. So like a Travis Hunter, for example, is the perfect sort of player for a flag football team, right? If you only have 10 spots, then versatility is going to be at a premium. The NFL does not want to see 2 players from the same team on the same country. But if, let's take the Detroit Lions, for example. Jared Goff, let's just pretend that he winds up being the quarterback for Team USA. Well, Amon-Ra St. Brown has German citizenship. And if Germany is one of the 6 qualifying countries in flag football, could Amon-Ra St. Brown play for Germany? Now you start to see how a team, and that's 2 of their biggest stars who may be missing for substantial parts of the offseason or preseason in pursuit of a championship. So those are just a few of the obstacles, and that's just one sort of permutation of this in this hypothetical that we are still 3 years away from ultimately seeing.
We had a couple of our analysts put together some potential teams. It's really early in the process, and again, as JJ said, this is not official, but like you see this team right here from Kyle Long. He wants to see Kyler Murray at quarterback, Saquon at running back, Justin Jefferson and Malik Neighbors at wide receiver, and Brock Bowers as a tight end. I mean, is that I guess that's feasible, right? Because those are different teams, and same thing here for Mike Renner. And JJ, Mike even has a college player on his team in Jeremiah Smith, because this is still 3 years down the road, and I got to imagine, JJ, that it won't just be limited to NFL players, right?
No, it will not just be limited to NFL players. And that, Chris, is another fantastic point that I think a lot of folks right now, because they are so excited, may be missing, or maybe they're just not hip to. So let me be clear about this. It is not about whether you are the best football player. It's about whether you are the best flag football player. And I understand that people hearing me say that may roll their eyes. I am not at all saying that the best flag football quarterback is better than Patrick Mahomes at football. Of course, I am not saying that. But there are certain strategies involved. There are certain philosophies, offensively and defensively. I'm going to give you a perfect example. In flag football, you can't use a stiff arm when you are carrying the football. And so if somebody wanted a Derrick Henry on their fantasy flag football team, maybe that's not the guy to get. Right? But if you were starting a football team right now and you need a running back, Derrick Henry is very much at the top of your list. Again, you may think that you have 3, 4, 5 better wide receivers than Travis Hunter, but because there are 10 players and because some may have to play offense and defense, why don't you go ahead and make sure that you can get a guy who potentially can defend the pass as well as catch the pass? The field is shorter, and so any sort of deep threat, for example, at receiver, well, routes aren't going to have as long to develop necessarily. So you don't need the guy whose route takes several seconds and it develops 18 yards down the field. That's not happening in flag football. A lot of nuances to flag football, a lot of very good flag football players as well who have been doing this for many years. And so I don't know if 10 NFL players are just going to parachute in, or if they're going to be 8 and 2, let's call them flag lifers. I think there's going to ultimately be a mix here. What that mix is, if it's 5 and 5, 8 and 2, 9 and 1, remains to be seen.
Now, just looking at some of the rules for the 28 Olympics, the field is 70 by 25 yards, 2 20-minute halves, 4 downs to reach midfield, and then 4 downs to score, and no run plays within 5 yards of the end zone. That means, I guess, no tush-push in the 28 Olympics, and maybe not next season either. Roger Goodell has made a statement on this saying, quote, "It's an incredible honor for any athlete to represent their country in the Olympics, which is the pinnacle of global sport. I know firsthand that the inclusion of flag football in the Olympics has sparked a tremendous amount of excitement among NFL players interested in the chance to compete for their country on the world stage. We are thrilled that they will now have that chance." There's also players here that we've compiled, maybe not the biggest names in the sport, but some players from other countries. JJ, do we know how many countries could be involved and what the qualifying process is going to be for this?
Yeah, great question. It is unclear exactly what the qualifying process ultimately is going to be, but I can tell you if you look at the rankings, the IFAF, International Federation of American Football, their rankings, Team USA, of course, is #1. In the men's side, followed by Austria, Mexico, Germany, France, and Italy. And so those are the top 6 in the rankings. And so if they wind up going off of rankings, and the rankings stay the same, those would be the 6 teams and 6 nations that are represented on the men's side of 2028 flag football. And so you could pull from any one of those guys that we saw earlier, perhaps. I mentioned Amon-Ra St. Brown with German citizenship. One thing to be on the lookout for that I was talking with sources about over this week, there may be some nations who try to recruit current NFL players who say, hey, you're not going to make it on the U.S. side, or maybe your odds of making it on our side are so much better, so why don't we go ahead and give you some sort of naturalized citizenship? Look, the games are still 3 years away. I don't know about that paperwork. I'm a U.S. citizen and hopefully always will be, but I assume that 3 years is far and away enough time to sign up for another country and legally, if you will, permissibly play for them.
And this was one of 3 big votes we expect this week. The other 2 involve potentially reseeding in the postseason, where you seed based on record and not your division. The other one is the aforementioned tush-push. When can we expect to hear those votes, and what is expected as a result of those votes this week?
So those votes will take place, if they wind up taking place, on Wednesday. I just say if, because just because there is a proposal on the table does not mean that it will be voted upon. Sometimes these proposals wind up getting tabled. That's what we saw back in March with the tush push, where it actually wasn't voted upon. They did an informal vote. It was 16 for, 16 against. Green Bay went back on their proposal, changed up the wording. It was a poorly phrased and poorly worded proposal to begin with. And essentially, the new proposal is prohibiting pushing and pulling of a ball carrier anywhere on the field. That, in talking with sources, has a far better chance of ultimately passing. And so we will know tomorrow whether effectively the tush push will be banned. If you had to ask me right now, before everyone continues to campaign into Tuesday evening there in Minneapolis, I would tell you it is likely that the tush push would effectively be banned. Meanwhile, the playoff reseeding, it is a proposal by Detroit. That one again got tabled a few months ago. It's back up for a potential vote. If it does get voted upon, I do not anticipate it passing. I think it's too radical of a change. It will not have the votes to pass. But will we see potential playoff reseeding changes in the future? I think certainly, and I think it is most likely to coincide with the move to 18 games whenever that takes place in the coming years.
All right, Jonathan Jones here with the latest from the spring meetings from Minnesota, where owners today have approved the initial processes of being able to talk about allowing NFL players to participate in flag football in the Summer Olympics of 2028 in LA. Again, that proposal needs final approval from the Players Association. We'll keep you updated here on HQ.